it's harder to stop the progress of somebody that already has work done, right? So when somebody comes to you with an almost fully developed idea ready to be implemented, it brings a different outcome to the team because they're like, okay, let's run it. Or actually, can we tweak this a little bit? Can you make this font a little something? Or could we QA it? And all of this is still welcome, right? We want the test to be executed to perfection like it would. We want the voices still to have a say in all of that, but it's alleviated dev so that they can spend their time working on really cool projects that we know are going to be effective for our brands versus working on all these, I'll call them little, but not really, on all these ideas that we're trying to, with speed, try to see, can we come up with any good ideas that are going to be changing the business for the positive for us?
Welcome to Unite Voices, hosted by Katie Green. Real stories from the people behind today's most innovative experimentation programs. No fluff, just wins, failures, and the lessons in between.
Marcella, welcome to Unite Voices, hosted by me, Katie Green, who I'm so happy we got to meet in person already at Unite Vancouver. I feel like we're already buddies coming onto this podcast. So thank you so much for being a part of our show. I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself. You had such a good presentation at Unite Summit Vancouver. And I would love for the people to know who you are before I dig into all the dirty details of how you're running your testing program.
Thank you, Katie. It's an honor to be a guest in your podcast. I had the pleasure of meeting you, and I feel like in Vancouver, you became instant friends with everybody. You just have such an aura and a good quality to you to make people feel at ease and have a great conversation. So I'm very much looking forward to being a part of this. And just for everybody, a quick intro. My name is Marcela Gutierrez. I born and raised in Honduras in Central America, but I lived much of my life in the US. I lived a little bit in the Philippines, and now I live in Switzerland. I've been here almost 80 years now. Um, and I've been with Fossil Group for 13 years. So my career with Fossil spanned both in the US and in Switzerland. And my role here is to be over digital analytics, experimentation, and consumer behavior, really understand who our consumer is for Fossil. So I'm happy to be here.
This is great. I didn't realize you lived in the Philippines for some time. We're going to have to talk about that a separate time. My dad is from Manila. So,
Oh, that's where I lived.
oh, great. Okay, we're going to have to go over this. Like I there's some really good Filipino food in Portland, Oregon, so we're going to have to talk about this and that'll be a whole separate pod. That'll be my food pod when I start that. No, this is great. I want to dive deeper into your role at Fossil because I saw on your LinkedIn something that really stood out to me, which is you are an analytics translator. And I think a lot of people listening to this pod who work with us and work in experimentation, they may not be analytics engineers, but they are responsible for translating analytics, data, success. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what that means in the context of a global brand like Fossil.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think if you play in a technical role, or even if you have expertise in anything, you need to become good at communicating, and you need to become good at translating to whatever audience you are speaking with. So my same message when I talk about whatever project I may be talking about will be delivered in a different language if I'm speaking to analyst versus if I'm speaking to a marketer versus if I'm speaking to a salesperson versus if I'm speaking to a board of directors, right? And it's just this idea of that with analytics, with experimentation, with blank, your things can get very technical, and you can come across as very intelligent and impressive by using complicated language, or you can come across as just easy to understand. And that's how I challenge myself. That's a skill set that I try to work on to make sure that my team and I are very good about this, and in translating, in taking complicated topics and making them easy to understand, easy to digest, and easy to know what can I do with this? What is my next step? And funny enough, I was just looking this up because it's even in our team mantra, like for my direct team. We have a little mantra that we put together a few years back. And our little mantra is always deliver the truth in a beautiful way. And what this means is, we are the analytics team. So we are a neutral team and we will always deliver the truth. Like people come to us with questions. They have something in their mind that they want to explore, a problem, an opportunity or something. So it's our job to look into this and deliver truth, look at facts. But we are also, when I say deliver in a beautiful way, this encompasses several things. It encompasses being respectful of the other person's point of view, knowing if they're biased in some way or another, because if we're going to deliver bad news, we will always do it, we will always deliver the truth, right? But we want to do it in such a respectful way that can be easily grabbed by them and understood, or versus celebrated if you're delivering a positive news, and in a beautiful way, meaning also visually appealing, like that your information can be captured and understood easily on a slide, not with 10,000 different words, with formulas, with things that are just gonna make somebody go to sleep, but really do it in a way that it's easy to digest and easy to action on. So
I love that. I think a lot of people are going to take that away from this episode is how do I deliver maybe not even hard things, but like you said, complicated. It can be really complicated in experimentation. I think you have a very unique skill. I love that you said you're still working on it. I think that shows the ego of an experimenter, right? Where you're constantly striving for better, you're looking to improve. You're kind of classic to a T on that constant improvement behavior identity. So I think something you did at Unite Summit Vancouver is you told the story of how you're leveraging PBX and AI to speed up velocity for your testing. And I'd love for you to dig into that a little bit more. You did such a good job explaining that. I think there's so many elements we can get into, but let's start with the overview of how are you using PBX? How are you leveraging AI to increase velocity, increase learnings, and democratize how you're sharing that information?
yeah, for sure. I mean, we at Fossil do a lot of experimentation, right? And our process, we've been doing experimentation now for several years. We do it across our different brands of portfolios and across regions. And so PBX has really, when I tell you this, it's transformed our experimentation program. Meaning, if we look at our experimentation program and where it was 4 years back and where it is today, it's changed, and a lot of it has had to do with PBX. Why? Because with PBX, we've been able to tackle an area that used to be a bottleneck for us. For us, the idea of experimentation, you're looking into ideation and you're looking into execution and analyzing the results and presenting them and all of this. um, Ideation has never been a struggle for us. We come from a group that is very outspoken. People here, they love to share ideas, and we love it. We welcome it. We want everybody to give a good idea of things to be tested. And then we go about it and measure the idea and such. But to us, it was always an issue of finding dev capacity and capacity in the different teams, but especially with our devs, to be able to create the test that we wanted to and get it ready in order for it to go to production. So with PBX, what we've been able to do is analysts and members of my team were able to lighten the load on the developers, because we can take a lot of the ideas that we have in the pipeline and do them ourselves. And what I mean by this is, when we come to a sprint review, when we come to get together with the bigger team and talk about the ideas that we want to run and execute, it's a different story when you come prepared and come, I have an idea ready for QA. Can we test this? Versus, hey, I have this idea that's an easy one to do. Should we work on it? It's harder to stop the progress of somebody that already has work done, right? So when somebody comes to you with an almost fully developed idea ready to be implemented, it's it's brings a different outcome to the team, because they're like, okay, let's run it. Or actually, can we tweak this a little bit? Can you make this font a little something? Or could we QA it? And all of this is still welcome, right? We want the test to be executed to perfection like it would. We want the voices still to have a say in all of that, but it's alleviated dev so that they can spend their time working on really cool projects that we know are going to be effective for our brands, versus working on all these, I'll call them little, but not really, on all these ideas that we're trying to, with speed, try to see, can we come up with any good ideas that are going to be changing the business for the positive for us?
I love that little clip so much. I'm gonna cut that out and use that 100 times. I'm telling you. No, that's wonderful. The momentum, right? It's a lot harder to stop a moving train, and I think that exactly, yeah. And so a lot of people are excited about that with PBX. The question I usually get is, okay, but are they just little ideas? Is it just a thing that, like your example of, oh, this is like a little test that I was probably going to win. Should we even waste our time building it? Versus, I built this thing. Let's just go ahead and try it. We know it's probably solid. Can you tell us a little bit more about the diversity of complicated tests that you're building? What is the level of effort that you're putting into PBX, and what outcomes are you getting in terms of complexity of test?
Yeah, great question. So I'll go in different levels of effort. The simple ideas, the little ones that even Dev would say are little. These can be done. These are the bread and butter of PBX. They can be done almost with one prompt. Okay, easy to do, easy to execute. Now, the ideas. This is, for example, what I mean by these easy ideas are like hiding an element or moving existing features around. This is so easy with PBX. Okay. Now, the ones that I would consider medium ideas, medium level of effort, right? It includes different pages, or it includes a different flow, or it includes creating something new or something like this, or it has different elements that, for example, adding an add to cart button on a recommendation zone. This is a little bit of a bigger task than just changing the color of a button, right? And with PBX, what we've noticed is it's it's been able to tackle many medium ideas, and some medium ideas it can do up to like 80%. And then we can have the dev team come in and just do that last little bit um, to help us finish it. So it still decreases the work of the developer. And for the harder ideas, I mean, what I consider a harder idea is it involves different systems. PBX is not going to touch these different systems, right? So if it involves my product management system, if it involves our content that lives in somewhere else, okay, this is not going to be touched by PBX. This remains a hard idea. When we think about it in that terminology, we'll still need interventions from the different teams, but it does alleviate a lot of these medium to easy ideas that even some easy ideas have been in our pipeline for a year, because they might be easy, but they might be considered, yeah, they're not going to do much, and so we don't do them. But because they're ready and ready to serve, we've been able to slip them through the cracks. Hey, we got this idea ready and our property is ready. Does anybody have any objection to running this test? No? Okay, let's run it. And we run a lot these way.
What I've seen in my career in Crow, this is also another great example of what you're saying, is the little tests can have just as big of an impact on your bottom line as your bigger tests, especially because they compound on each other, right? So when you're changing a button color, reordering, changing the headline, da 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 da, over time you end up with a huge change to the page, right? It may take more time, slash it doesn't plug into those complicated tech stack problems, right? We see that all the time where somebody's like, "Oh, I'm creating something net new, and it connects to our CMS and it connects to Shopify," right? This is a complicated test, but these little ones can have just as much impact as the larger tests, and PBX allows you to run faster on those little ideas and the medium ones. I appreciate that you brought that in there. PBX is getting better every day too, so it'll be the blink of an eye before before it's handling all of your really complicated tests, which is great, and then your dev team can focus on all of the implementation. But I'm curious if you have found that to be true for your program, the little tests compounding that impact and having a really big impact on your bottom line, right? I think that it's really easy to say, okay, let's run fast, run fast, run fast. I want to make sure it's not a hamster wheel, right? I'm saying the proverbial. And, tell me a little bit about the impact to your bottom line and how you're measuring that as a result of the velocity increase you're seeing with PBX.
Yeah. So to your point, these can accumulate over time, right? Because when we run several tests, then we have the task of looking back and noticing trends. And this becomes the that concept of winning and losing tests, right? And the learnings that you get are still grand even if you lose. And I think of so many examples where we had a losing test, and by this I only mean the hypothesis that we had in place, it didn't match what actually happened, but we learned so much from it. And in those cases, I we still have meetings today where somebody will bring up a test that happened 3 5 years ago that was a failure, because we don't want to make that same mistake again. Like, we learned something about the consumer. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do with all these tests. We're really trying to understand our consumer. What is their preference? And when we do all what we consider these little tests, ultimately we're learning the behavior of it, of the consumer, and they'll aggregate for us to do better decisions, better features, better UX in the future. We tend to put an ROI for each test, um, estimating what it would be if we were to implement this test, or the opportunity cost if that test was a failure. And because we didn't launch it without testing, how much money did we save? So we put this little number, but it's more of an internal check for us, just to kind of show the efforts that we're putting into our experimentation program.
Yeah, that risk assessment is a huge part of understanding the impact of what could have been launched but lost. And I think that a really healthy program has both of those measurements. So I love that you brought that up, because people are going to be listening to this and maybe they're like just focused. I mean, I've worked with teams that are okay, we really just focus on ROI. We're not really focused on opportunity cost. We're not really focused on risk evaluation, but it really does start to paint a picture of what your users want. And speaking of what your users want, I'm curious how else you're using AI. So PBX has grown astronomically since it was originally launched. And as it was originally launched as PBX build, right? Helping you do exactly what you're saying, which is taking these little tests, and every single day it's getting better at building that. Now we have PBX ideate, which is coming up with ideas and prioritizing them on pages. And now we have PBX MCP, so you can there's no longer a separation between experimentation and feature flagging. These are all one big tool under PBX. And this is like a very recent launch, but I'm curious, are there any other AI tools in specific that you're using for ideation? I think the what are because that all comes back to what your user wants and what you're learning. Are you using AI to analyze insights? Are you then putting that back into a custom GPT, for example, to help you generate ideas? Is there any other place you're implementing AI to speed up velocity at any other stage in the experimentation workflow?
So for experimentation, not quite yet. No. I mean, we have many cases, and I could share many of how we're using AI and um, how we even test AI features, AI solutions, AI vendors, and things like that. But within the ideation, I saw Drake's demo, and I saw in the Vancouver Unite, and I'm actually super interested in this product. So we're actually in the process of trying to get access to it, trying to add it to our contract, because I think this would be a big game changer for us. Based on the demo, again, I don't have hands-on experience with this, but based on the demo, the thing that I liked about it the most is the tie back to the the science behind it, the what is it, the behavioral economics of it, like why is it recommending this. So in other words, I think in one of the examples that Drake showed, it was like in your PLP, in your product listing page, you should have, instead of a grid of 3 products in per row, have 4. And because the choice, giving them more choice will allow you to blah 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 blah. And just this fact of having these concepts explained is such a powerful thing. And if I remember correctly, it also even gave an ROI or an expectation of how much of an impact it would have on your site. So I am really interested in testing this out. We haven't yet, but excited because hopefully maybe in the next few weeks here we get access to it.
Yeah, I asked because so many people listening to this are they're getting the how do I implement AI? I don't even know where to start. They don't even have PBX, right? So this is just great context to have. I love that you're about to be building that in. I actually did a really good webinar, little shameless self plug here, but I did a really good webinar with Drake, and it went a lot into the nitty gritty details of, okay, how are these tests created? Where are they coming from? Why are they prioritized like this? Tell me about the consumer psychology behind X, Y, and Z. And he did an excellent job. So it was kind of like the part two of that demo where he explained a lot more of the back end and the build of PBX Ideate. So if you're ever interested, anybody listening or yourself, in listening to that, I have a few clips that I've shared on LinkedIn. And I have a write up of my takeaways on my LinkedIn as an article. So totally feel free to check.
Perfect. Yeah, I saw it come through and was excited to see it.
Yeah, thank you. I love working with Drake. But this is all great. I think that AI is really changing the landscape extremely quickly for experimentation. I mean, for every industry, right? Like we're seeing this everywhere. I think it all comes down to what your core truth is, your little, I'm calling it a pillar of truth for you, is how do you understand your users? You did a really cool talk at the Unite Summit Vancouver that we've mentioned, and you mentioned a lot about KPIs, primary and secondary. I'm curious if you have a take on what some of your best practices are when you're talking about metrics, and what are some common mistakes you might see when people are they're getting really fast, right? We have an idea, we have it 90 100% built in PBX. Now we come to the metrics part, which can feel like another bottleneck. So I'm curious what experience you have navigating that part of what is the future bottleneck that will be unlocked by PBX.
I mean, really, our experimentation program has changed so much over the years. And I challenge my team this all the time, right? Like, we know as much as we know today, and hopefully tomorrow we'll know more. And the moment we know more, we pivot. And we are very transparent with the business the moment we do. And looking into these metrics is one of them. When we started out the program many years ago, we were session based. And one time I remember seeing this woman speak about how you were hurting your experimentation program if you're doing it session based and not user based. And because by a test being effective, you would get a returning consumer, but because you were not looking at it correctly, the math wouldn't add up and it would be detrimental to your test. We changed it. We changed it immediately. We tested it out and saw that her points were so valid to so many of our tests that we made a change for this. And the metrics that we use, so this idea of when we have tests, we set the hypothesis from the very beginning. And our metrics aren't always conversion rate. If it's further down in the funnel, if it's in the checkout, for sure, we'll be looking at conversion rate. But when we test, and because we're running multiple tests at the same time, we tackle what's the immediate next step. So if I am changing the way my filters are being shown, my main KPI is interactions with the filter. My secondary KPI is, do they view more product? If I'm testing something in a marketing campaign, my primary metric might be, are they clicking through? Do they come to the website? My secondary metric might be bounce rate. I want to make sure they're not just bouncing, right? So it's this idea of having your main KPI and its BFF. Like, we need to make sure that when you do a test, you are corroborate like what's that word? Corroborating. That you are corroborating. Now I can't remember that word. Okay, that you are making sure that that story makes sense, that it's truthful, right? So you don't want a test to just, I want to bring in traffic. No, I want to bring in qualified traffic. So my sessions, my users go up, but my bounce rate doesn't skyrocket, or they're still showing whatever behavior you're going for, whether it be the time on page, the view, the pages they see, interactions with your filters, that they're not just interacting, but then they bounce, or something regarding your search, or if you take the price away, okay, you're gonna get more clicks, sure, but did they actually continue down the funnel, or did you just frustrate them, right? So it's that idea of checking the immediate next two steps and having these combined metrics together to always make sure that you're showing the right story, that what you're testing makes sense. So that idea of, you have your step 1, your step 2, and your step 3. Let's pretend we change something in the filters. So you're changing or something in your filters is your step one. Your step two is interacting with your filters. If they interacted with it, that's good, right? That's what we were going for. Step three, did they view product? If they did, so the division of that step three divided by your step one. This is also important because if you inflated your step two and you just look at step three divided by step two, then you might be negating the fact, right? You might be hurting your formula. But if you divide step three by step one, then you get a story. Did you actually get a lift overall, or were you just inflating that first step?
I really like that uh, visual, right? That you're painting here. I think a lot of people are going to resonate with that. As a practitioner myself, when I'm looking at a test, I'm thinking my primary KPI is the closest to the change. And then from there, though, you bring up this excellent point, which is context. And I think going back to AI, it's such a focus of what we're doing at Chameleon. The AI doesn't understand what's important to your leaders, right? Not at the stage it exists today. And maybe it's easy enough to create it in there and tell it what's important, but at the same time, there's an emotional intelligence that AI doesn't have in terms of you saying, okay, let's go with a PLP example. I want to see how many people are viewing products. Okay, are they viewing more products? Are they clicking more products? Are they actually adding to cart? Or is their AOV increasing? There's the different ways you can get to a meaningful story arc with the metrics you're using. And sometimes that meaningfulness, I don't know the right word there, but that meaning is originally generated from a leader's POV, one of your team members, KPI, OKR, whatever it is, right? Insert generic acronym here. I'm curious where else you see the human creativity not being lost in the loop, because we talk about AI so much, it can automate. You've done an incredible job illustrating how PBX has increased your velocity for build. Where are the humans still having the most impact in your experimentation program, you think, today?
And everything.
Yeah. That's the best answer, right? Isn't everything?
Yeah, I mean, AI is a tool. And I remember going to an AI conference a year ago, actually. And it was a great conference of AI across industry. And I remember this one gentleman putting his hands up and saying, right now I could fire 80% of my analysts. And I just couldn't believe this fact because either one, he's not quite in tune with what his analysts are doing. Number two, they're doing too much of a manual task. And in that case, yeah, being used incorrectly. Because when I see my team of analysts, what they work on is not manual stuff. And what we need analysts for are for this idea of understanding concepts, of understanding what's important to the different teams, what is going on with this promotion, what is going on with the inventory over here, what did this team, what is top of mind for them. Because sure, maybe it's better at identifying trends, at taking a big data set and identifying things here. This is great, but to understand what other factors that we did not put in, or to clean up the data before we feed it in, right? Like all of this takes human intervention. So our teams are pivotal in every step of the way, in creating it, in feeding it, in making it resonate, in the storytelling. Because at the end of the day, if you have something wonderful but you cannot connect to the audience, and going back to that translation piece, you can have all the beautiful insights, but if you cannot make a marketer, if you cannot make a salesperson, if you cannot make whatever audience understand it and act on it, it's nothing. It's just words on a paper or numbers on an Excel sheet, right?
You did an incredible job tying it back to the very first thing we talked about. It's like you're a professional podcast guest. I love that. Yeah, I think that there is that politics, is what I want to call it, that AI isn't going to be able to manage in its current state. That people are so important in making sure gets done. Wonderful. This is all, we have so many good nuggets for people to listen to here and learn from your program. I know people are probably going to be finding you on LinkedIn and sending you a message and saying, "Oh my gosh, I loved your episode." Of course, I'm assuming there's going to be so many people listening to this episode. But my last question for you is kind of the same question I ask everybody, which is, let's say somebody, a lead, analyst, a designer, whoever is, you can pick the persona, but they're listening to this show, they're watching it on YouTube, listening on Spotify, whatever it is, and they're curious, what am I going to do tomorrow to start to get closer to speeding up velocity and translating complex ideas in a better way, which are the things that you do so well. What are some tangible next steps you could provide someone leaving this show?
To work on your communication, to practice it, right? Like in the team, we've at times done presentation training. And what this meant is like we presented to each other and we said, Katie, you have to present PBX, present it to somebody like Drake or to Colin, to somebody involved in the industry. Your wording used is going to be very different. And so you had to pitch this for 2 minutes. Now presented to a 10-year-old, what words would you use? And you have to make it entertaining for them, or present it to somebody who yeah, to your grandpa. Present it, and now take 2 minutes to present PBX to your grandpa. And so it's this idea of practicing and to listen to others. What when do you think, or in other words, taking a look at other people that you believe are good presenters, what's the commonality among them? What do they do? How do they get their message across and learn from that, right? Because the best experts can take a complicated topic and make it simple. When you're a young analyst, it's like that idea of when we were kids in math school and they gave us a math problem and the teacher was like, I need to see all the work, and you remember you would write down all the work and then finally the answer. And now it comes about that in our day-to-day life, we need to cut out all the work. When you're a young analyst, you want to show, oh yeah, okay, you gave me this problem and then I went down this rabbit hole and then I had these many issues and then I put this thing, but then I put this other thing and then I put this other thing and here's the answer. But the more experience you get, you come out and you just simplify it and you make it look very easy, even though it cost you a week of time to come up with this answer. But you don't need your audience to know that, right? You can get your audience to just understand. They don't need to remember. It's even something as like something we work on with my team is like, do they really need the decimal point? For some cases, yes, I want 0.1 decimal point. This is important. But in most cases, the 40% is enough. I don't need to know 40.2. They're not going to remember 40.2. They'll remember 40%. In other cases, it's important. 0.76 is important for whatever, but it's always tying back to the concept, like understanding your communication, the message you're trying to get across, and just getting good at communicating. This is just the best soft skill in life that we can do right now is to keep practicing and getting better at our messaging.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And I think that it's something I'll always strive for myself. Being the host of a podcast is a horrible and extremely effective way of getting better at communicating because I'm just like constantly listening to myself. So I think that to build on that, the thing that I found was the most helpful in building my communication skills is recording my QBRs, recording my ideation sessions. It sucks. Don't get me wrong. That is just a soft skill that humans uniquely have. And I really appreciate you lending your time to talk to us about your experimentation program. I know people are going to be finding you for more information. I'm so excited to see you in London and maybe Paris for Unite Summits later this year. And yeah, thank you again for your time. I can't wait for the world to see this episode.
Thank you so much, Katie. It was wonderful. See you soon.
See you.